Hey everybody, this is April from April Miller Coaching, and welcome back to my video blog. I just want to say thank you to those of you who are continuing to follow me and check out what's going on in my life. I really appreciate it. It's been a pretty vulnerable time. Today's topic is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and you know. I guess I'll just start off by saying that it's just not reserved for one group or type of people. A lot of us think that PTSD is just the veterans from the wars or, military servicemen and women. And while that is part of it, it's not everybody. So, PTSD, I mean, it can come in a lot of different forms with many different people, and you can get it from a variety of things. All it is a reaction where there's a trigger. So a trigger can range from something extreme, such as a firework exploding, and that usually relates to our PSD military men and women who have been in war, and that just triggers them to think that they're still in the middle of war. So that's a PTSD for them. Or it could be even someone speaking to you in a certain tone of voice because that's what you've experienced in the past, and it wasn't a pleasant one. When a person does recognize that they have PTSD, they're able to be more cognizant of what might trigger them. Um, and that can lead into conversations with loved ones in order to help tone down those triggers or eliminate them altogether. But don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that when someone has PTSD that they need to deal it with themselves, because that's not true. But I believe that starting with that or trying that is definitely beneficial for all involved. Um, but I do believe that people should receive counseling overall for things like that. There's a lot of tricks to dealing with that. Um, but what I've explained previously about recognizing and being cognizant just kind of gets that conversation started if you're able to. I know there's lots of people out there that are unable, to do that yet. And it's unfortunate, but there's a lot of people who have PTSD that is in a very extreme form. Or maybe it's their personality that's stopping them from admitting to it or whatever their block is. And many people just don't deal with it at all, which can become dangerous. And we've seen that in the news where there's been radical things happen due to it. But people, but that's where people like us can come in to help guide and support them and look for those triggers and have conversations with those people. Mental health is so, so important nowadays, that we learn to recognize that and help people and reach out to them as much as possible. Personally, I've had bouts of PTSD in a variety of forms. After my physically abusive relationship, I had PTSD for quite a while. And that's something that I can get into another time where I can get into some details. But it was bad. But I also developed PTSD based on my childhood and now that I'm an adult, and it still happens to this day. In fact, it happened yesterday. And this PTSD is part of the reason why my relationship with my now fiance, it was difficult at first, right at the beginning. And that was the meat of the problem, was the PTSD. Fortunately, I was able to recognize it. But if I didn't act upon it and recognize it and have him there, even though he was having a difficult time, it probably would have destroyed our relationship with us, like completely, and we would not be together today. When a person is used to being treated a certain way and they're told certain things, it sticks with them. And it doesn't matter how untrue it is. It doesn't matter how silly it may sound, because I hear that from people. People say, well, that's not true. Well, yeah, we know that, but it still triggers things. And it's not what we have learned. Instead, we've learned that it's normal to be treated this way, or it's normal to be being told these things. That's just a normalcy for us. And children's minds are like sponges. So when it starts as a child and then it carries on, it then becomes a normal thing. So anything beyond that, that's going to be very strange for us. We're not going to know how to deal with that, even though another person may. So like I said, I finally recognized my triggers in my relationship with my now fiance. But prior to that, not only was I dating like the wrong guys, whatever that meant at the time, because I had no idea what that meant. I didn't see that. There were triggers within these relationships that I wasn't recognizing. Instead of just responding to or not responding to because I thought I deserved to be treated that way. So, for example, yesterday, um, I had come back from traveling and I was gone for 3 days. And so I came home and I unpacked and hugged everybody and spent time with my daughter and my fiance. And but then I realized I needed to lie down because I was just really tired from the exhausting weekend. And I ended up falling asleep. And when I woke, my fiance was gone. That was a total trigger for me. He didn't tell me where he was going. Um, I, you know, I asked my daughter, "Do you know where he went?" And she said she didn't know. She didn't know where he went. Um, and uh, which apparently he did tell her, but nonetheless, immediately though, my brain went on overload. So I started having thoughts, and what happens is these thoughts come in increments of like half a second to a second at a time. And so it was pulsating in my brain. He left me. Where did he go? Oh my gosh, he doesn't love me. He's gone forever. He's not coming back. The emotions that I had, they came on all at once. So I was angry, I was sad, I was disappointed, I felt like crying. I mean, all of those. They were all rolled into one. So at the time, I was trying to get my daughter ready so we can go to the grocery store because I was out of groceries. So because of this trigger, everything else is, I'm being sensitive to everything else around me. So then I became angry at, I didn't have any groceries. And I had asked if I had some groceries for lunch. I was told yes, which to me, I was like, oh my gosh, now I'm being lied to. What is going on? So it's just, it keeps pulsating at me. So I texted him and I waited and I waited and I waited. And when your brain is on overload, the waiting time, like the 1 minute waiting time, seems like a half an hour. And so I believe it was like 5 minutes, but it seemed like a lot longer than that. And especially with texting and everybody just being used to immediate gratification with the texting, and I wasn't getting that back, those feelings and those thoughts were coming on stronger and stronger and stronger. So now to me, my thoughts were being confirmed. Okay, everything was true that I was thinking. I thought, he was getting away from me. I did something wrong. Now I'm trying to solve a problem that really I learned later on didn't exist. I was asking myself, what did I do wrong? Did I not respond correctly? When my daughter got upset and I parented her, did I do it wrong? Did I do this wrong? So I called him a few minutes later and no response. So now my mind's going even quicker, it's going even stronger, and it's going even faster. No response. And not until I was done shopping, so it was like a good half hour, that I received a response. So, and then later on, we figured out the issue and I took a deep breaths because I realized it was a trigger, and I thought, okay, settle it down. This is a guy you trust. I have a ring on my finger, and I said yes to him asking me to marry him. So I have to trust myself that I'm trusting him, if that makes sense. But this is what can happen to anyone going through PTSD when they have a trigger. That was one of my triggers. It's not, I have several triggers, but that was one trigger, is someone just leaving my house without telling me that they were going somewhere. Because in my childhood, that's what happened. People left the house. No real communication. There was nothing there. And it's still happening, at the house I grew up in. And even though it doesn't directly affect me, because I don't live in that house anymore, I still hear about it and it weighs on my shoulders. But anyway, so I thought I'd share that PTSD with everybody. I'm still a work in progress. Recognizing triggers is the first step. I hope that helps anybody out there who might be going through the same thing. And next time I'm going to align this with raising a child and how that affects children. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.